Hola chicos, hoy en clase vamos a hablar sobre la gramática de 2.1. El tema son los pronombres o en inglés object pronouns. Ok, entonces deben sacar los apuntes que tenemos para esta. Just a reminder, if you printed out the notes, you guys can go ahead and write into those. If you have not yet printed them, or you plan to write into the digital copy, make sure you guys make a copy of it for your own records and follow along as we go. Okay. So pronouns are words that take place of nouns, person, place, or thing. Direct object pronouns directly receive the action of a verb. So today we're going to be working with direct object pronouns and indirect object pronouns. So these are the ones that receive the action of the verb. So that's what I mean by that is if you are looking for something, this is what you are looking for. So here we have an example. Busco unos guantes. I'm looking for some gloves. And here the gloves are the direct object. We don't have a direct object pronoun here yet. So to avoid repeating the direct object noun many times when you're talking about looking for these gloves, you can replace it with a pronoun. In English, we use him, her, and it, or them as examples of direct object pronouns. Another way to think of a DOP, because a lot of students get confused between a DOP and an IOP, is it is the what. So if you're like, okay, it's the what in the sentence. What are you buying? What do they need? What did I learn? And it would answer that question. I learned science. I need a girlfriend. Okay? Something like that. In Spanish, the direct object pronouns have the same number and gender as the nouns that they replace. So me or me will still change to me. You will still change to te. So this is if I need you to do something, or if you want me to bring something to the party, we would use these type of direct objects. It, him, her, or you formal would be lo or la, matching in the gender and the number being singular. Us would be nos. You all in España would be os, and them or you formal would be los or las, because here we're working with plural. Okay. So go ahead and take a minute to do the practice below. Change the nouns below with their correct direct object pronoun based on their gender and number. So you guys can pause the video, work through these, and then we'll go over the answers. Ok, bueno, vamos a repasar las respuestas. Primero tenemos zapatos, este es los. Mi padre, este es lo, because we're talking about him, not to him. And even if we were talking to him, you might be using the usted form. Ropa, la. Chicas, las. Burrito, lo. And us, nos. Excelente. Vamos a continuar. Indirect object pronouns. And in Spanish, just so you guys know, these are pronombres del objeto indirecto. So the way you say it in Spanish is kind of long and slightly inverted, but very similar. Indirect object pronouns identify the to whom or for whom an action is done. Okay, so you guys will notice in the box, it doesn't just say me, you, him, us. It says to or for me, to or for you, because when we're thinking about these sentences, that is the situation when we would be using these to identify to whom did I give the present, for whom, as is she bringing the flowers, something like that. So here we still have the same pronouns for me and te, for me and you. It is the third person category where people get confused. So it's to or for it, him, her, or you formal would be le. To or for us would be nos. To or for you all would be os. And to or for them or you formal plural would be les. Okay, so here we have another little practice section. Traduce estos ejemplos a inglés. Entonces aquí tengo 3 ejemplos en español con frases con un pronombre del objeto indirecto. Entonces quiero que ustedes piensen por unos como 30 segundos sobre cada frase y vas a escribir el inglés. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video y traduce estas frases. Bueno, quiero repasar estas frases. Les doy dinero. I give money to them or to you all if you're talking to a group of people. Te traigo el regalo. I bring the gift to you. Ana le habla a su hermano. Anna talks to him, and him is referring to her brother based on the ending portion. Okay. Another way to think of an IOP, to distinguish it from a DOP, is it is the to or for whom or what. So who am I buying it for? Who did she tell it to? Or what am I buying it for? Okay, so an example would be like, I'm buying it for my house, or something like that. Okay, so at this point, you guys are probably familiar with IOPs and DOPs and what the actual words are. We're going to be working a lot on the positioning of direct object object pronouns, and also how to do more than one in a sentence. Okay, so IOPs and DOPs go before a conjugated verb. So here I have some examples with an indirect object and a direct object. Carla siempre me da las entradas para el teatro. No le compro más videojuegos de mesa. And then 2 examples of direct objects are ella las consigue gratis or nunca los juega. And then we have the translations there as well. Okay, so they're all going directly before the conjugated verb, whether it's in the present tense, the past tense, any form. When the verb has an infinitive construction, so that means the infinitive is utilized somewhere in the conjugation portion of the sentence, object pronouns may either be attached to the infinitive or placed before the conjugated verb. So the way I always like to think of this is if there's one verb, we have one option for where to put it before. If we have 2 verbs, we have 2 options for where to put it. So here we can see we have some examples with 2 options. Vamos a dar, 2 verbs there. Vamos a hacer, another example of 2 verbs. Here we have tienes que hablar, 2 verbs. So here, in all of these examples, we can kind of see both options for how to place the object pronouns. First, we have indirect object pronouns. Vamos a darle un regalo. Le vamos a dar un regalo. So we have it attached to the infinitive or in front of the conjugated verb. And then here we have voy a hacerlo enseguida. I'm going to do it right away. Or we can also put it in front. Lo voy a hacer enseguida. And just so you guys know, translation-wise, there really is no distinction here. So if you were speaking these sentences, people wouldn't be like, oh, that's interesting that she put it at the end or before. There really is not a distinction translation-wise. Okay. When the verb is of progressive form, object pronouns may either be attached to the present participle or placed before the conjugated verb. Okay, so here we can see, so the present participle, just so you guys know, is the ing part. So this is a situation where you can attach it to a conjugated verb. As you guys might know, you can also attach pronouns to commands, but we're not going to be talking about those right now. So here I have an example with an indirect object. Pedro está contándome una canción. Pedro me está contando una canción. Pedro is singing me a song. So we can either go in at the end of cantándome or in front of está. And you guys will notice when we add an additional syllable to some of these longer words, we need to also add an accent in order to maintain the correct emphasis in the word. So we will talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, it can be a little challenging, but it's not a huge grammatical element, but it is very important for correct writing in Spanish. Okay. An example of a direct object, está contándola muy mal. La está contando muy mal. Someone is singing it, or Pedro is singing the song very poorly. So the la here does not refer to a girl, the person he's singing to. It refers to what he is singing. So remember, the indirect object, who is he singing the song for? Me. What is he singing? The song would be la. Okay, so now the challenging part, having double object pronouns in a sentence. So sometimes we do need both used together in a sentence. So when an IOP and a DOP are used together, the indirect object pronoun will go before the direct object pronoun. So the way I always remembered it is I'm number one. So the one that's the IOP is the one that goes first. And then the DOP. They're never inverted. Sometimes they can be split. Kind of unusual, but it can happen. But the IOP will always go first. So here I have some examples. The original form is on the left. Me mandaron los boletos por correo. So the original form here has an IOP and it doesn't have a DOP. And then we end up saying, using both an IOP and a DOP, an indirect object pronoun, me, and a direct object pronoun, los, referring to the boletos. So, me los mandaron por correo. And so just a reminder, guys, since we have one verb here, mandaron, we only have one option for where we can put both of these. Both must go before the verb. Okay. But if we were to have two, we could put both attached, and we're going to talk about that shortly. Okay, so then there's another rule that makes this slightly more complicated. Due to pronunciation, if we have a double object pronoun in a sentence and it has le or les at the beginning, it will change to se when they are used with lo, la, los, or las. So the way I remember this is you can't lay low, but you can say low. So the le and the les will change to se. So an example is of the original sentence with an indirect object pronoun and a direct object, a direct object, la tarea, would be le doy la tarea a mi profesor. If we wanted to change la tarea to a direct object, we would say se la doy a mi profesor. Okay, so we wouldn't say le la doy. So remember, you can't lay low, you can't lay slow, but you can say low. Okay. So just a reminder, this rule only applies to L words, or L pronouns. So me, te, nos, and os are unaffected. Since the IOP always comes first in the sentence, you will never substitute se for le or les, or you will only ever substitute se for le or les, never for the second pronoun lo, la, los, or las. So here I have a little flow chart to help you guys. What the original is that's incorrect and what it needs to become. And notice that all of these either have le or les, none of them have me, te, nos, or os. So you guys can take a minute to look through those. And just a reminder, direct object pronouns, when you have double, are not super common. I mean, we do use them. For example, the sentence up here with me los mandaron por correo would be they sent them to me through the mail. So you have to know already what you're referring to, the tickets, to use this type of structure. But you can use both.